Good evening. Welcome to 365 Days of Amazing Stories with Theo Mayer. Here we are on day 299. I'm continuing the story of the land of souls. To review where we are in the story, remember that young chief, that young brave who had lost his love, had journeyed south, eventually coming to a wigwam on top of a hill where an old man was there expecting him. He tried to get the young chief to go in and rest, but he was just not able to do so. He was so excited about the possibility of seeing the one that he loved so much. And so he did not rest, but got up to go. And the old man had him leave his body there in his safekeeping, as well as his bow and arrows and his dog. And off the man went now, feeling light as air itself, and traveling across the landscape. It was as if his feet were not even touching the ground. And the animals did not run from him, but instead came up to him and rubbed themselves along his legs and licked his hands and looked up into his face. The rocks, he seemed to pass through them, as if he was passing through their soul, because this was the land of souls. And substance was not as we know it in this world. And so he continued on his way. Now the old man had given him some instructions that he would need to cross this large body of water. And eventually he got to the shore of this huge expanse of water. And there he saw along its banks a canoe with a beautiful paddle. And so he got in and pushed off from shore and began paddling out into the water. And as he did so, the waves began to get bigger and bigger. They began to look behind him, and suddenly he realized that there was a canoe behind him with someone paddling. He watched every so often. He looked behind his shoulder to see who was coming up, and he could not make it out first, but could tell that it was probably a woman, her dark hair flowing off into the wind. As she came closer, he could see that it was his beloved, directly behind him in a canoe. Now, he could not stop, nor could she, for the waves were so big, and both were worried that they would get consumed by these waves, so they paddled on. Beneath them in the clear waters were piles of bones along the bottom from those who had attempted to cross the water and had not made it. In fact, bobbing up and down in the water amongst the waves were other people, other souls, trying desperately to make it to the other side. Only the children passed without fear. But our hero and heroine were fearful that their boats would tip and they would be swallowed by the waves themselves. But determined, they continued on their way, dipping their paddles in, holding themselves steady in the water with their paddles, and stroke by stroke, making their way toward the other side.